Hello there. So I invite you behind the scenes as I'm working on a new track, and I figure we just check out the track in my digital audio workstation. I'm using Logic Pro, and then we can get working on it and just hopefully get some good tips going. So let me see if I can just show you the screen now. Yep, here we go. Something like this. Nothing super. Oh, there you have the modulation there. So yeah, I don't know, something maybe not, the most original track in the world, but I wanted something that grooved. So what I did was I started with I found myself a cool beat in the, just the stock stuff in Logic Pro. And then I recorded some bass over that, so, like this. And there you have my skills as a bass player. And then I figured, let's work on like a basic modulation here. So what you're seeing is 4 bars of C minor, and then 4 bars of D sharp minor, so up a minor third, and then just goes back and forth like that. And I added some fills via Logic Drummer, which has that, human-like drummer effect. Just something like that, right before the key change. If I remove it, it sounds a little bit empty. So I felt something was needed there. Okay, so there's the track. Now the challenge with this one is the fact that there's a modulation happening. SXT, practice bro, exactly, that's what I'm gonna do. Can you teach me how to sweep pick? Cool question, we can definitely speak about that. Okay, so there's the track. So now I'm gonna grab my guitar and just see how we can work on this. Now, because there's a modulation happening, we can't just rock away in our pentatonic scale as much as we'd like to. So we can start in C minor. But there's a key change. So here we have to. You can either just like move up, so we move the C minor shape to D sharp minor, which is okay, but that's kind of the first thing you try, and you realize that it kind of matches harmonically, but it's not that cool, melodically. You can't really come up with cool melodies if you do that. So there's got to be a better way. Damebisky. You could join my live, but later on in the stream. So hang around, and when I'm done, I can hook you up, and you can show me your practicing, your gear, whatever you'd like to. Okay, so there's a better way of doing it, and that's what I'm kind of working on here. So instead of just moving our trusty box up 3 frets and play, so it's just the same pentatonic box on 2 different places. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find a pentatonic box in D sharp minor, so the one we moved up to, but down here, so we can stay in the same position. So basically, we're looking for a pentatonic box that superimposes the first one we're playing in C minor. So that's kind of the trick here, and moving in between that. So first box is this. So here's the superimposed box. Back to the first box. And check it out. Oh. I think we missed it. So back to the first box, and now I'm gonna make that like a beginner shift, and you can hear the difference. So there we did it just the easiest way, and it didn't sound quite as cool. Let's try it the better way. So first box. And now we move into the superimposed box. Cool. Good to know your real name, man. Is it JM? Good to have you here. You can use the relative minor and major to get more notes. For sure, for sure. So you can always think in terms of relative minor and major. Here, the biggest challenge is really going to be to change key. So I think a lot of rock and pop guitarists, they're comfortable, or they find it fairly easy to kind of move between a few boxes, but in the same key. The problem here is there's a change of key. So, and it's hard to make your melodies sound consistent when there's a modulation happening. So when basically it's like someone pulls away the ground you're standing on, and you still have to pretend that you keep on going the normal way. And that's when this becomes very useful. JB, we should be friends for sure. So let's see if I can play over this track and kind of keep like more of a consistent melody going. So we start. Box 1, nothing strange. So that's an attempt at staying in the same position and kind of keeping the phrases going without the need to do this. Where I move each time there's a modulation. So the pick I'm using is a Jazz 3 Tortex pick. So there you have it, Jazz 3. Of course, this one is totally worn out, so you can't see. It's a pretty good standard pick. The only time I don't find it really good is when I need a lot of power. Then I find like a bigger pick. Still like 1.5 millimeters, kind of thick, but there's just more surface and I can be more aggressive. But for most of my stuff where precision is more important, this pick will do it. Yeah, sure, you can use a 6 millimeter pick. Usually those super thick picks, they still, get kind of thin towards the edge, right? So it doesn't really matter. I haven't tried the John Petrucci Jazz Suites. That would be cool. So I'm not sure how they are at all, actually. So what's the difference between them? So if I move up, can be cool as well if you want to contra. But it's a whole lot harder because then you have to do this kind of superimposing wherever you are. You have to redo the thinking and remapping, and it's just easier to stay in one position if you're new to this. Oh, the John Petrucci pick is bigger and has grip, and the tip is but it's still a Jazz 3. It's called the Jazz 3, even though it's bigger. It doesn't have the same how do you say in English? Same measurements. Mått. I wanted to say it in Swedish. Does it have the same mått? But only Swedish people would understand that. Electric Gypsy. Is that some Hendrix stuff? Sorry, I don't know what it is. So C minor pentatonic. And now D sharp minor. Axoni, I'm doing good, thanks man. Back to C minor. And I'm adding some Aeolian notes there. Now D sharp minor. I can do some hybrid legato maybe. Back to C minor. And now there's a modulation. I think I messed up. So whenever I mess up, I tend to play fast. It's a bad habit, doesn't serve you very well. It's better to just not mess up. Okay, so it's like in the middle, it's a normal pick. In the middle, I don't know. Okay, so it's like I would say a compromise between like a Jazz 3 and a standard size pick. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to try it. So Axoni, I'm doing good. Nice to see you again, man. It's been a while. Okay, so one more attempt, and again we're going between C minor and D sharp minor. There's a modulation happening, and we're trying to like pretend we're not we don't have that modulation. So if we come up with a phrase, we would maybe come up with like a call and response idea where you play one thing, and then. And the challenge is to keep that going even though there's a modulation happening in the background. How to use whale not wisely, master? What does that mean? Sorry, mate, I don't get it. Whale, what's a whale? To me, that's like a fish, big fish. Okay, let's try it. C minor. Okay, modulation coming up. Soon back to C minor. Modulation. Love your post from Iran. I've just started guitar with an acoustic. Can you give me some tips about learning scales? Thank you so much, Amir Ali. Learning scales, that's a tricky one. I would say don't learn too many scales in the beginning. Learn like one scale if you want to solo, and that would be the pentatonic scale. But spend your time learning licks. That's much more important than learning scales, because if you just learn scales, you're going to find that you know, the scales are just like dots on the fretboard. You really can't do any music with just the scales. You need suggestions and ideas in terms of licks and patterns. So don't learn a lot of scales. Learn licks, and the scales will kind of come naturally, because you will start to see, oh, you know, this shape is super common, and then you'll understand, oh, that's because it's taken from the scale. That's I think the good way to do it. The bad way is to learn the scale shapes and then just cry because you can't play music. I've seen that a whole bunch of times. Okay, HS, could you rephrase the question? Because I still don't get it. I'm very curious though, so please give me one more chance. I don't know Eugene's trick bag, but I had a student who played it for me, and it's like this thing where you go between minor and diminished. That's all I know. It's like I don't like that. I don't know. But I love going between minor and diminished. It's a very cool trick. I just don't know that track now. There I'm doing the same, so I'm playing like E minor, triad arpeggio. And then I'm going to E flat, diminished arpeggio. And it sounds really cool. They're connected through like harmonic minor. Okay, so let's try one more time. I'm gonna try to modulate, going between C minor and D sharp minor, and we're gonna try to make it sound like it's still a consistent melody, consistent phrases. We're gonna try to see if we can pretend there's not a modulation happening there. So basically a complete change of key where just the ground is torn away from us, the ground we're standing on. So let's try it. C minor, right? Okay, modulation coming up. Oh, that's much better than doing up here, just like moving all the time. Okay, back to C minor. Modulation coming up. I was a bit early there, so that's also a challenge when you're improvising over a modulation. You have to try to kind of keep thinking in terms of bars, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to keep track of where that change is coming. For me, that's the biggest thing, because I'm so used to improvising and jamming in just one key, so I really hate to think of the track. So I need to get better at that, much better. I would need, I think, lots of practicing to be as, kind of fluent with my phrasing over a modulation. I think that's the way it is for everybody. I mean, it's considered much harder to play over changes. So let's try one more time, starting in C minor and then going to D sharp minor and trying to make it sound fluent. So when I did the funny face, there was a modulation. Soon there's a modulation back to D sharp minor. Back to C minor again. Okay, modulation coming up. Frank Zappa, well, I know him, but I never listened that much to him. But C sharp minor is a fantastic key, simply because it's the relative minor to E major, right? So if you're thinking E major, and you're playing E major, you're actually playing the exact same notes as C sharp minor. So that means basically you can, just by changing the bass note, you can go between C sharp minor and E major. So I can imagine he did use C sharp minor quite a bit. I like it a lot. Though here we don't have C sharp minor, we have C minor and D sharp minor. Okay, let's try some more. C minor, pentatonic, just our first box. Okay, last box of D sharp minor, which allows us to stay in the same place here. Back to C minor. Okay, soon this is going to be a modulation. Can you hear there's a modulation happening? Hey, Cyronic, what's up, my man? I'm a beginner. Should I practice harder song in much slower tempo or easier or closer to the actual tempo? That's a fantastic question. So you should definitely, if you ask me at least, play an easier song with the actual tempo. Because if you do that, then you get so much for free. You get to practice groove. Basically, the things you learn, the fingerings, the fretting, or the picking, the fretting, everything like that, gets connected to the groove because you can keep up with the groove. However, the opposite is pretty much also true. If you practice something that's much too hard, then you're going to be so slowly, you're not going to be able to connect with the groove, and you're basically not likely to understand the phrasing and the rhythm of the song. So it's always better to practice something that's easier, where you can groove along, because you will get to the advanced stuff, but in a much better way. So yeah, go for that. Cool question, by the way. C minor. D sharp minor coming up. But there's a problem, okay? I don't know if you've heard it, but each time that I modulate to D sharp minor, I stop playing those pentatonic ideas and I start doing more like bendy, melodic, and sustained ideas. Nothing really wrong with that, but in an ideal world, I would be able to continue with those pentatonic blues rock ideas regardless of whether there's a modulation happening or not. And the reason I fall into this trap is because I know many more licks in position 1 in C minor than I know in like position 5 in D sharp minor. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. So what I'm going to try to do now is play some bluesier licks in the 5th position of D sharp minor, which is harder, you know. This would be easy, right? D sharp minor. That's your trusty pentatonic box. However, the 5th position here, we don't know as many blues licks. There's one. So let's try that. Sorry, mate. Don't know Hotel California. I don't know any covers. You know, I haven't played them for years. So let's try this. If I can... C minor, 1st position. Easy to play pentatonic licks. Okay, modulation coming up. So I like that. That was, to my ears, more fluently, because I didn't change style just because there was a modulation happening. Of course, another good thing is that this forces me to come up with new pentatonic licks as well, which is kind of the challenge, or kind of the whole point here. So let's do that a little bit more, and I'm going to see if I can consistently play rock and blues licks, both in position 1 C minor and position 5 D sharp minor. That's tricky. Let's try it. Okay, so if you ask me, it's more consistent now. It isn't necessarily sounding better. That's a whole different story. That's going to be kind of dependent on the actual musical content you come up with. But at least there's a bit more consistency, and that's a start. It's just much harder to come up with a cool melody if you're totally limited when there's a modulation. So the first step is to really be able to just play a consistent flow of ideas that are not interrupted by the modulation. And that's kind of what I'm working on here. Master of Puppets. Well, that's actually one that I know, in spite of not having played it for years. Sorry. I should have practiced it sometime during the last 15 years, but I guess I chose not to. Okay, so one more attempt. We've rested our brain a little bit. Let's see if we can do it one more time. C minor. Modulation coming. So that's ideally you would kind of do that, right? Repeat the same phrase when there's a modulation happening. Let's repeat that phrase. Now modulation comes. I messed up a little bit, but something like that. Okay, modulation. Okay, let's now, and I'm gonna try to do it now in a way that you would do, as a beginner, just moving between two positions, and that's fine, but it's a different thing. So let's try that now. Position 1, C minor. Okay, position 1, D sharp minor. Back to C minor. D sharp minor. So some might argue it actually maybe sounds better, and that's simply because here I'm not limited by my poor ability to kind of modulate on the fly. So just in case you're thinking, well, what's the purpose of practicing the other one? It doesn't sound as good. Well, there I'm working on a limitation of mine. Whereas if I do it the other way around, where I constantly switch position and only play like position 1, the one we all know, then I'm no longer as limited by my, visualization ability of the fretboard. So instead, it's easier to work on cool ideas. So that's why you gotta practice, right? So let's practice a little bit more. Staying in the same position now. Okay, modulation coming. I'm still in the same position, right? I'm still here. I haven't moved up. Back to C minor now. Okay, so there I did something worth noticing. Instead of playing rock licks, I started playing more melodic sustained licks in both keys. And the advantage is, like I said, I don't have the problem where I have many more rock licks in position 1 C minor than I have in position 5 D sharp minor. So I kind of got rid of that problem by not playing any rock licks, which is of course also a possible solution. Let's try it again. So no rock licks allowed, only basically Aeolian lick. Messed up. But I think that's more consistent now, because you could hear, I could keep that sustaining melody going regardless of, what the actual chord or progression was. Okay, soon back to C minor now. C minor. Okay, getting ready for D sharp minor now. D sharp minor currently. Back to C minor. course, it's insanely hard for me to think about these changes and also speak to you guys. So I tend to play them a little bit better when I don't have to communicate with you guys. But it's still interesting because it's a cool practice topic. And I mean, if you're into fusion and jazz, this is a must, of course. But even if you're not into it, having a modulation is cool in any song. It just kicks things up a notch. So if you want to be able to follow that when soloing, you sort of have to, you know, be aware of the things we're discussing here. So I think it's a useful topic. Sorry, I don't know any Lamb of God. Which is probably not the Lamb of God. I barely know how to riff. A little bit of metal for you. I don't have a metal sound dialed in now. I've tried to tweak this sound for actually a coming recording. So I want to get recording over this track that I'm working on now. So that's why I'm practicing it. Do you have any tips on how to play Yngwie Malmsteen style arpeggio? So Yngwie does a lot of these 2-string arpeggios and 3-string arpeggios. I play them a little bit differently than he does. I mean, that would be my closest take, but he doesn't do it that way. I think he does it very differently, though he does some 5-string sweeps. So I think the basics are the same whether you're doing like Yngwie arpeggios or not. You have to get into sweep picking. Yngwie claims that he doesn't sweep, but that's not correct. He sweeps all the time. I think he meant that he just doesn't do traditional sweeping, which sounds the way, you know, majority of the 80s dudes, how those sounded. But he does sweep all the time. So you got to learn sweep picking, and then you got to learn the harmonic minor scale, and then you can play diminished arpeggios found within the harmonic minor scale and minor arpeggios. So that would be the closest route to sounding like Yngwie. Play diminished arpeggios, play arpeggios found in the harmonic minor scale. You think Dave Mustaine is a good lead player? I don't, no. Especially not when you hear him next to Marty Friedman, you know. Not because Marty Friedman is more technically proficient, though he is, of course, but because Marty Friedman is much more original and melodic, I think, than Mustaine in terms of lead playing. I love Dave Mustaine in terms of songwriting and riffing and even singing and melodies. But you asked about lead, and I think Dave Mustaine, I think he does a better job when he's not playing lead and he lets his lead player forward instead. I hope he's not watching the stream because he's going to hate me. So let's see if I can just maybe show you where am I? The screen. So here's what I'm jamming to right now. So here you see the track, hopefully. C minor. So I just wanted to give you a chance, to see what I'm playing over. Here we are. Ayo, Philemon. Hey brother, how do I improve my alternate picking speed? More specifically, when I play my major scale fast, everything falls apart. Cool question. So what I found, a lot of people trying to play scales fast is, you know, they play like the whole scale position up and down, and because they've seen someone else play the scale position up and down, and they're like, well, that's what I should practice. So they try to play fast, but that's generally a very bad idea, because what you're not seeing when that other player plays fast up and down the whole scale position is that this player has in fact spent a lot of time practicing the individual patterns that make up for that scale run. And those patterns are usually just consisting of one or two strings, and that's how you develop speed. So when you see me play like a whole scale position, I haven't practiced it like that in the beginning to build speed. That came much later. What I first practiced was short patterns of one or two strings like this. So that's the first thing you have to do, get comfortable with short and small patterns. And then, when you're comfortable with that, then you can start practicing the whole scale position with those patterns that you already master. If you skip the first step of practicing small patterns, you're never going to get to this. Whatever. So yeah, that would be my number one tip. Don't try to play the whole scale position fast. That's never going to work out. Instead, play just one or two strings. Find a pattern that you can practice on one or two strings. And when you master that, then you combine that with the same pattern on the next two strings. So if you started like this, you get good at that. And then you have a similar pattern on the next two strings, get good at that. And then you can work on combining it. And then you have taken an important step to actually playing the whole scalar position. So that would be my tip. Greatest riffs. Sorry, mate, I'm really bad at that stuff. Modulation coming up. So I'm moving between positions more freely now, as you can tell. Now that's cool for shredding, but it's not as useful for coming up with melodies, right? So just to wrap things up, if you weren't here from the beginning, what I did was I started out just practicing playing a consistent melody in one position and how you can do that when there's a modulation happening. And then I'm kind of showing you what happens when you combine that with some shredding and all that good stuff. Philemon, you can get private lessons from me. You just have to go to my site, Christopher Dahl, and you can there's a section called Virtual Lessons, and there's a schedule, and there you can book a time with me, and that would be an honor if you wanted to do it. Okay, so you might be wondering what the purpose of all of this is, but it's really just to visualize the change of key in one position. That's what I've been working on, and that's super important, so you're not bound to make a position switch each time there's a modulation happening. So let's do one more time. Starting out in C minor. now, modulation. Okay. Back to C minor now. But this kind of practicing is not only demanding for your, hands and fingers and arms and body. It's actually mentally demanding, I would say. It's really you need to put your everything into this. It's like one dimension above just practicing shots and licks and stuff like that. So it's fun stuff. So I will hopefully be done with this track maybe in a week or so. So you're gonna find the backing track and everything on my Patreon. Of course, I have to get a little bit better at it so I can I can record something cool. But if you want to get playing over it, you will be able to do that pretty soon. Okay, thanks so much for watching. It's been a fantastic session, many cool comments and questions. I hope to see you soon again. See ya. Cheers.